Shadowverse.
Greetings, I'm Shad, and I'm here in person at Carnarvon Castle, and it is another monster. It is huge. How huge? Well, here's the interesting thing. In regards to standard sizes of medieval castle, Carnarvon is easily big enough, with very distinct reasons why, to be 7 to 8 castles in one. I'm not kidding. And you can actually see some of the reasons right behind me. It's these big grand towers. This is the thing. Each one of these big towers, Carnarvon actually has 7 of them, and then if you include one of the larger gatehouses, which is the King's Entrance, that also has plenty of rooms attached to that as well, that actually makes the equivalent of 8 individual castles. You see, I've mentioned and shared a lot in my videos that Carnarvon is not typical of your standard sized castle. It's huge. In actual fact, we've seen some typical standard sized castles as we've been travelling across Wales and Britain. Best example is Trettawer Castle. Trettawer Castle is a beautiful, interesting and great example of your more standard sized castle where its primary keep, okay, is about the same size as one of the side towers here at Carnarvon. And that's all it had, that grand tower, and then it had an enclosed wall very close to that grand tower right there with an adjoining ward or bailey off to the side. We got to see another castle, which was actually much bigger than something like Trettawer, but it still only had one grand tower, and that was at Pembroke Castle. And it was a beautiful, gorgeous example of a mostly intact grand tower. Here at Carnarvon, we have 7 of those, 7 grand towers that are linked by walls. Carnarvon is a really interesting castle, and I've referenced it a lot in many past videos because it's a great example of a subcategory of the linked castle type. So the linked castle is a castle where the primary living quarters or fortified tower is connected to one of the main primary walls that encircle a bailey. But Carnarvon is more than that. It is actually a towered linked castle where all the primary buildings are actually connected along that primary wall that encircles an internal ward bailey. It's not to say Carnarvon is only made up of those 7 primary towers. It has the King's Gate, which is pretty big. It makes 8 overall, but I haven't been including this gate right here. And maybe my mind will change when we explore it. There's going to be a video where we're, of course, going in and exploring Carnarvon, because I don't know how much living room is actually inside this gate right here. This one right there, which is called the Queen's Gate. Carnarvon has 2 main gatehouses, the Queen's Gate, which you can see right at front here, and the King's Gate. So on top of the additional gatehouse we haven't included, there's some other really interesting things. There are some bastion towers. So a bastion tower, we can actually see right there. See this tower right here? It's like a half tower that is connected to the wall that doesn't rise higher than the line of the wall it's connected to. So that's what qualifies it as a bastion. And so Carnarvon has plenty of bastions. It has internal buildings that once stood there, which provided even more room. And it also has a number of turrets attached to the primary towers that you can see as well. So there is even more stuff in addition to those primary large grand towers, which even makes it bigger than just 7 to 8 towers in one. I'm inside one of the tower rooms of the many towers of Carnarvon Castle. And this one in particular is one of the larger ones, and it goes to show you that, yeah, like this room right here, okay, is easily big enough, or would have been like the Great Hall of many more standard sized castles. You have a big fireplace here. Now, because of the interesting design style of Carnarvon, where it has, I guess, tunnels, walkways in between inside the wall, right, that usually ring around them, it's hard to let in light. But this one actually has, well, an alcove that leads to one of the exterior windows to let in more light, because this is a bigger, more important room. You can see through right there. And so it demonstrates the size of these towers. These towers are actually pretty big enough to legitimately be the primary individual keeps of more standard sized castles. We're in one of the kind of adjoining tunnels that are on the outside walls of nearly all of the towers of Carnarvon Castle. And this one in particular, we get a good view of every single level, because this one is open all the way through. And it goes to show you, again, how big these side towers are. And remember, there's 7 of these towers, including a big gatehouse. And so right here is room for 1, 2, 3, 4 levels, and probably a roof level if they wanted to add that on there as well. So 4, possibly 5 if they wanted, right? And this is easily the size of a great tower of singular castles. Like a castle, many of them, most castles, which is a tower like this with a wall around it, like we saw in Tretower. And you can see still enough size. This is actually probably a similar size, if not a bit bigger, than Tretower's the Great Tower of Tretower Castle. Also the Great Tower of Pembroke. Pembroke had 1 of these towers. Carnarvon has 7. And this is how Carnarvon actually qualifies as essentially 7 to 8 castles in one. Because remember, just look at Tretower Castle. Just one of those towers was the primary fortified section of the castle with walls around it. Carnarvon has 7 of those with a really large gatehouse, which makes 8. 8 castles in one. That's how big Carnarvon is. Really big castle, and it shouldn't really be seen as representative or common as your standard castle size, because it's a monster, and this is why it's a monster.